Hey everyone! So it's time we get back to the little Unimog. And the last time I was just about getting ready to put the injectors back in here, so let's just go ahead and get right on that. So sometime early on in this series I was talking about getting these injectors sent out to have them tested and fixed up. Not because it's difficult to do, but just because I didn't have the right tool to do it myself. But before I actually got to do that, I've been acquiring more machines that are gonna need injector work, or at the very least to have them checked. So I figured it would eventually cost me quite a bit of money to send all those out, so I went ahead and got that tool. This is what is commonly referred to as a pop tester. Reason for that is that one of the things you're testing with this is at what pressure those injectors are popping open. But there really is four main things that we want to be testing here. So the first thing is, like I said, the opening pressure. So we want to take a look at the injector itself, and somewhere here, it says right there, 115 AT. So that means that this injector should be opening up at 115 bars of pressure. Now this conveniently does not display bars, it displays megapascals, but that's super easy to convert to bars because all you have to do is just add a 0 to those numbers. So right here at 10 megapascals, we add a 0 and that's 100 bars. So we want this to pop open right between those two lines there. That would be 115 bars. Now I don't expect these to be that accurate, but we want to be in that range. And the next thing we want to check out is the pattern that these make, the spray pattern coming out of these. Now because these are in an engine with pre-combustion chambers, these are just monopoint injectors. So we want to see just a nice cone shape, very nice and even cone shape coming out of these. And the third thing we're checking for is when they are spraying, we're listening to the sound they're making. We want to be hearing a creaking sound coming out of these, because what we're really hearing is that little needle in there doing a lot of stepping as it's opening and closing really fast. And the last thing we want to see is if they are leaking while under pressure, or if they can hold the pressure. So the way I do that is that I just creep up on the pressure really slowly, and right before it's about to release, I hold it there. And what we want to do is keep an eye on the tip here and make sure it's not leaking out of that. If we do have leaking, we want it to be up here in that little return port at the top, but we also don't want it to be too much coming out of there. And all of this is going to be putting a bit of diesel fumes in the air in here, so since I don't have some kind of ventilation, I'm going to be wearing a mask. So if I sound a little bit different, that's why. Alright, let's go ahead and try the first one here. Right there. So you can see it's releasing a little bit early at right around 100 bars. If we look at our spray pattern here, it's not very uniform. It's a little off to one side. And we're also not hearing that creaking sound from it. We're just hearing a spray. That's not good enough. So now, I'm just going to build pressure up to right before it releases. Right there, and we're going to hold that. And as I hold the pressure here, we don't want to see anything dripping out of the tip there. This one is looking alright. It's only leaking out of the return hole up here on the top, so that's alright. So even though it holds pressure, it still failed the other 3 points. And there is actually one more thing wrong with this, but I'll show you that later. Let's just go ahead and test the other ones. Would you believe it's been over a decade since I last did this? Terrible spray pattern. And it's also not creaking. It's opening at right around 100 bars as well. Oh, it is creaking a little. There we go. It just needed a little motivation. Alright. Let's see if it will hold some pressure. It looks alright. But it's still a fail. Try the third one. Yeah, it's also opening right around 100 bars. Maybe just short of that. It is creaking a little, but it's all spraying to one side, so that's not good either. Let's see if it will hold. Yeah, looks like it. Alright. But it's still a fail. So I just noticed something on the last injector here. Not only is it not a Bosch marking on here anywhere, so it's been replaced at some point, but also the threads on here are just really stretched down here at the bottom. So someone has really been cranking down on the nut that is holding the return line on it. But I think we're going to give it a chance anyway. Oh, this one is creaking nicely. You hear that? I don't know how well the microphone is picking it up, but this one is sounding right. But the spray pattern is terrible. It's just like, it's almost just one line. This one is actually leaking at the bottom. Let me see if I can get you a better look at that. I'm gonna start putting some pressure on it. Look at that. It's leaking right out the nozzle there. You really don't want that. Alright, so now we have confirmed that all of these are bad. But I actually already knew that before I even started testing them. So I've already gone ahead and bought a new set of Bosch nozzles for these. The reason I already knew they were bad is what I mentioned early on, that I knew there was something more wrong with these. Apart from those 4 things we've just checked, there is another visual clue. If we just look at the very tip of these, you can actually see that there's almost like a crater right around this nozzle tip here. That's not supposed to be there. They're just supposed to be completely flat all the way up to this little pin sticking out there. The reason this crater appears is because it's been leaking in there. A drop of fuel gathers up around here, and when everything ignites, that solid mass of fuel is going to burn really hot and really violently, so it's actually going to burn away at the metal. Let's just get one of these new ones. And on this, you can see that it's just completely flat all the way across, so it's not supposed to have that crater right around the nozzle tip right there. So those burn marks on the ends there, they are the reason I just went ahead and bought some new nozzles right away. But what I didn't know at the time of ordering those was what the opening pressures of these was going to be, so I didn't buy what I would need to adjust that opening pressure. Because to do that, you need a set of little shims that you put inside to adjust the spring pressure. But I'm actually positively surprised with the opening pressure of these. They were all right around 100 bars, so they are only 15 bars low. And I think part of the reason they're low is because they are so burned here on the ends, so it's probably starting to leak through out here before they reach maximum pressure. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw these new nozzles in here, and we're going to see if that's enough to bring that pressure up a little bit. It may not be enough. I might have to go and get some adjustment shims for this, but let's just go ahead and give it a try. Let's go ahead and crack open the first one here. So this is that shim you use to adjust the pressure on that spring. Look at how dirty this thing is on the inside. This front part here, that is the nozzle itself. So that's what we're actually going to be replacing. This is generally the wear part of the injector. But we're not only going to be replacing that, we're also going to be cleaning up all this other stuff. All right, so let's go and get this thing back together. So we put our new nozzle in here. Get our washer in there and spring. All right, so that's the first one all done. And just because I'm curious, I think I'm gonna go ahead and test this one right away, just because I want to see what kind of a difference I made here. Let's see how much of a difference we made here. Oh yeah. That's right where we want to be. Also a much better and more consistent spray pattern. Alright, I'm happy with that. So I'm going to call this one done, and I'm going to go ahead and do the other three, but I won't film a whole lot of that because I'm really just going to be doing exactly the same stuff. Nice. Alright, so that's those all fixed up, and it seems like I got pretty lucky, and just replacing those nozzles was enough to bump that release pressure up a little bit. And now all of them are within 5 to 10 bars of the right pressure. Some of them are spot on, but the one that's the most off is this one that doesn't have any Bosch markings on it, so maybe that spring in there just aged a little bit differently, who knows, but it's still going to be good enough, and I really don't want to be delaying this part of the project another couple of weeks before I get a shim kit in and I can really dial down that last bit of pressure on that one. It's really not going to make that much of a difference on this little engine. So I didn't really want this to be the only thing going on in this video, so I have been trying to keep it short, but I guess I got a little carried away again. Anyway, let's go ahead and get these mounted back in the engine. Now we can finally close it off up here. So it was not because I actually needed access to anything in here, it was just to leave myself some more room to put all those injectors and stuff back on. So while I still have room to get down here, I'm gonna go ahead and replace the glow plugs, because this is still the old type, and not only were they not doing all that good of a job, but also they are wired up in a series. So they're wired up with resistor wires and little isolators and stuff. And it's a little unnecessarily complicated, and the main drawback with them being in a series is of course that if any one of these fail, all of them are gonna stop working. So I'm gonna be upgrading to this new type. They can just be wired up in parallel, so even if one burns out, the others are still gonna be working. So not only is that gonna make it a little bit more reliable, but also these draw some more current, so they're also gonna heat it up quite a bit faster. Click. Click. Alrighty, that is most of our fuel system up here done. So we may as well finish up the whole pump setup now that we're at it. The last big thing we're missing is this whole pedal throttle linkage thing that sits on here. There's a couple of issues with this, one being that this little ball joint here that snapped off when I went to take it off here, even though I was trying to be gentle. Now I do have a set of these little ball joints, so I think I can fix this up pretty easy, though I may need a new rod here as well because this one is kind of bent. And the other part is this little bracket right here. It's going to be sitting right down there, and that is what this is hinging on. But it's been doing that for quite a few years, so this has actually worn out a pretty big chunk of that little rod there. Now the cool way to fix this would be to cut this thing off and then get a fresh piece of steel, put that in a lathe and turn down a new piece like this and weld that on here. But I think that's a bit overkill for what I'm really doing here, so I think I'm going to take the fast and easy way and just weld this back up and then carefully grind it back down to a round shape. So that's our throttle linkage all done here. This doesn't have a turbo. Anyway, I still need a little spring that goes from this holder and up to hold this arm back so that it shuts itself off when you let off the hand throttle. But I have to find a spring, so I'll do that later. But with this thing being all nice and freshly painted, it also makes it easier to spot some things, such as that in there. I'm blocking the light. That oil spill running down it. It looks like it's coming up under there. So I'm all but sure it's the seal around the crankshaft in there. This has showed up after I've been manually cranking the engine to set those valve clearances. And I'm actually pretty happy that it shows up now, because it's 100 times easier to fix this right now instead of having to go back once I've already reassembled all of the stuff that goes on the front of the engine and having the cap and the radiator and all that in place, because most of that would have to come off again to fix that. So let's go ahead and do something about that right away. Not sure this will be able to do. Oh, no problem, I guess. I'm gonna have to get this solid counterweight or balancer here off. But that's also what has the timing marks on it. Now, it does have keys in it, but it also looks like it might be possible to take this off and put it back on, being 180 degrees off. So I'm just gonna go ahead and set it on my TDC mark, just to be sure it comes back in the right place. So clearly this has been leaking for quite a while. I just haven't been able to tell because of how the entire engine was just covered in dirt and oil and slime. But yeah, it's a good time to get this fixed. There we go. Alright, so that should be that taken care of. So now we can go ahead and mount all the other stuff out here that needs to be powered off this belt drive. But I think we'll save that for the next video. Otherwise this one is going to get a little bit too long. Now this really was a lot of that small stuff that just takes up a lot of time without a whole lot to show for it. But it was really nice to get all that sorted and out of the way so we can focus on getting the rest of this lower half done. So thanks for watching and we'll see you in the next one.